glasses on, I'm like blind. These are prescription polarized.
Don't worry about it. It's fine. It's cool.
If I put them on or whatever.
You can put them on. I'll give a shit.
It's because I want to see. If not, it's all
You're
good.
not a stoner.
No, that I don't. I don't smoke.
So, hey, guys, we're back with Phil Dutra. I thought I would do a little bit of a redo with these guys because we got pretty trashed on the last one. Well, not Phil, but everyone else in the room except Phil and Bobby D. So I wanted to kind of break down with him a little bit about his history. And not only that, I wanted to talk to him about his second place finish in the FLW. He's done a lot after that podcast. You've done a couple great tournament finishes. So I guess talk about your history a little bit, tournament fishing, and then talk about your last two finishes since we've been on the podcast.
Okay. Tournament fishing. Started tournament fishing. See, I'm 33, so 16 years ago. Primarily all on the Delta up until a year and a half ago. I started branching out. I did all the pro-ams at the Wild West pro-ams. I did FLW at Clear Lake last year and on the Delta, and now I'm in the Apex as well. Since last time we talked, we were talking about it, but we hadn't started it. So we've had two Apex events since then. So this year I'm doing the Apex. There's 30 guys on the whole entire West Coast that are a part of the Apex, which if you want to talk about that later, we can. I'm doing the Wild West set of Pro-Ams. I'm doing the MLF.
So is the Apex the same as the Wild West? I'm not.
Good question. So it's owned by Wild West, but it's a different it's kind of like how MLF owns the Bass Pro Tour and then the Big 5 Tour and the Toyota Series. Yeah. So Wild West has their traditional Pro-Ams, which anybody can fish. I think they cap it at 150. And then they have their Apex, which is the top 30 guys, at least from their circuit on the West Coast. Completely different format. Extremely cool. And if you want to talk about that later, we can, because I had so much fun fishing Apex, more than I thought, like way more than I thought. So it's a completely different format, no practice, no pre-fish. There's two different ways to qualify for the final day. It's a couple $1,000s per entry fee. There's over 100% payout. It's phenomenal, really cool. Fish small lakes, not the traditional Clear Lake, Shasta Delta. Mm-hmm. So there's that, and then there's the Wild West traditional pro-ams, and then there's the MLF, and then also the One Bass. So I'm doing all of them. I'm doing everything, and plus a bunch of Delta tournaments. So yeah, tournament kind of history goes back 16 years. I don't know how much you want me to get into detail of it, but
all the detail, bro. Come on.
Okay, so you're asking. So won 9 Angler of the Years on Team Delta stuff. So it's not like it's
Who was your partner most of the time?
So I fished with Harvey Pulliam for I think 6 or 7 years. Who's obviously known as a Delta Hammer. He just won the Wild West Pro-Am in March. I top 10 there, but he won that one. And then I fished with Nick Nero for 2 years. A lot of people know him as well. Hammer, and then I had a couple other partners in between, my good buddy Mikey, my buddy Dominic, and then the last 5 years I've been fishing with Mike Andrews, who's also a mega hammer. People have known him for 25 years. He was fishing when I was in diapers.
He fished with Danny's dad, right?
He used to fish with Bobby Delameter, right. Correct. Yeah. And that's my current team partner, and then obviously I do all the Pro-Am stuff. So, I've had a really good Delta career, and now I want to take that. I had a 5-year plan to take that West Coast and fish 5 years on the West Coast, see how I kind of ended up, and then depending on how that looked, maybe go back east. That is now shortened to a 2-year plan, and I'm actually trying to qualify to go back east immediately. I'm hoping by next year I'll qualify to fish the MLF Big 5. And then I'd like to fish the BSS Opens and qualify for the Elite Series. So that's the path that I'm on. And this year started off really strong so far. So
the BSS Opens, you have to fish the whole series, right?
Yeah. And honestly, I don't know all the details yet. I know some of the details. Right now, my main focus is qualify for the Big 5 Tour, which is MLF owned. You're fishing for 5 big ones. So it's not the Bass Pro Tour where you're catching unlimited. But you're still paying $5,000 per entry fee, $100,000 per first place, 150 guys. They cap. You have to qualify. But so it's basically the Elite Series by MLF.
Yeah.
But if I'm fishing for 5, and that's the way I like to fish, I think the Elite Series is, how would you say it? I guess at the top if you're fishing for 5.
Yes.
So my goal is MLF Big 5, and then as I'm doing that, try to qualify to move over to the Elites, but at least be in the Big 5 where I'm fishing back east for big money. The whole deal. So, yeah, so that's the plan. So far, so good. First event took second last week, which we can talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah.
But I got to be in the top 10. Technically, you got to be in the top 5 in the points, and then they'll invite you to go back east. But generally on the West Coast, they'll go all the way back to 10th if 5 guys before that won't take the invite, and a lot of guys don't because they live here, they have their careers here, their family here, they won't.
So is the MLF tournament that you're fishing right now, is that like the Opens for Bassmaster?
Correct. They call it the Toyota Series. It's exactly what it is. It's the Opens. So if I'm in the top, they'll take 5 guys from each Western, Northern, whatever they have, Southern, Eastern, and Central, and then they have the option to fish the Big 5 Tour next year.
Okay.
And then in the Big 5 Tour, you can, like some of the elite, when I say elite guys, not elite Bassmaster elites, but like the MLF elite guys, they fish both. They'll fish the Big 5 Tour, like my buddy Justin Lucas, he fishes the Bass Pro Tour, and then the Big 5.
And he'll fish the
Big
Great,
5.
Yeah.
So what I'm in is essentially one step below that, the Toyota Series, which qualifies you to get there. So
yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
So in the Toyota Series that you're fishing, do they go like anywhere other than this area, or is this kind of like the area they're working on?
So they generally do 3 tournaments a year. Usually it's either like Shasta Delta Clear Lake or Havasu Delta Clear Lake for the last, as long as I can remember. Those are kind of the main lakes that are generally in it. I think they may have had an Orville in there one time, but it's usually Shasta Delta Clear Lake, and then every couple of years they'll switch it up with Havasu. So this year it actually really plays to my strength because they had to reschedule Shasta because they closed the lake due to the corona. So it went, instead of Shasta Clear Lake Delta, it went Delta Havasu because Clear Lake got rescheduled because they're worried about water level.
Yeah.
So now I have 2 on the Delta, and we've already had 1, which I took second in. So
how does that play in for you for Havasu? You fish Havasu a lot?
I've only fished Havasu one time in January 12 years ago. But
do you feel like it's since there's a river system kind of somewhat? I don't know if there's tides. Is there tides at Havasu?
Not tides, but there's a river, and all I care about is there's grass and there's largemouth. So actually, honestly, I love fishing bodies of water that don't have grass. And and we can even tie that into talking about Apex, because Apex I was really excited to fish it for this reason. It's teaching me to fish bodies of water that I've never fished instantly, because Apex there's 0 practice, 100% off.
How does and where? How about the areas on Apex? Like, so have you gotten out of your comfort zone? You know what I'm saying? Like, where you're comfortable with Shasta, you're comfortable like within a 5-hour, 3-hour radius around here. Have you gotten out of your comfort zone where you've gone to a lake where you totally have no clue anything about?
Yeah, so great question. So remember before a year and a half ago, I pretty much only ever fished the Delta, an occasional Clear Lake for a TOC, Shasta a handful of times, and that was it. So last year was I guess you could say my rookie season for fishing everything. And I had a phenomenal year. I had a top 10 at Shasta, top 10 at Clear Lake, top 10 at the Delta. So for me, it was even an eye-opener for myself, because you wonder, like, how could I do with these other fisheries?
Yeah.
Spotted bass, no grass, January, all these things. And so you wonder, could I do good? You don't know, right? And so last year was phenomenal. Like I said, I top 10 in January at Shasta. Maloney's, I was like 64th out of 150, but I felt really good because I had a 5-pounder that, if I put it in the boat, I'm in the top 10, but I didn't. but I felt like, we all have to fish. But I had the bites to know that I was doing the right thing. And then top 10 of the Delta, and then I went to Clear Lake, and I had a 5th in the New Gen TOC, and then a top 10 in the FLW 5 days later. So it gave me so much confidence for myself, like, okay, I can do this. I can compete at bodies of water that I've never or barely ever fished with 2 or 3 or 4 days of pre-fish against local guys, right? And that's kind of the test for going back east, right? If I'm going to go back east, I'm going to fish all these lakes I've never seen. They're massive. They're way bigger.
So the only thing that in my head, I think, is like they're different styles. So like I had Keith, he was a big swim bait guy from back east. They're fishing the hydrilla, like it's a completely different, like 8 foot, the deepest part, or 20. So it's like a completely different thing. So like, have you tested yourself in that way yet?
Yeah.
So you know what I'm saying? Kind of like
great question.
Yeah.
So Shasta is spotted bass, massive fluctuations,
Okay.
no grass. The lake it could fluctuate 2 feet a day, right? You can go up there, and then 6 months later you go up and it's 50 feet lower than it was before. So I fished that, felt good, top 10 there. Lake Mead, U.S. Open,
yeah.
I fished that last year. I had an okay finish. I think it was like 80th out of 250. Not great, not horrible, obviously. So I always break it down. I think we talked about this last time too. You want to win it, you want to be top 10, you want to cash a check, and then I want to be in the top 50%. That's kind of the way I break the 4 segments of positioning. If I'm worse than 50th%.
But that's your plan, like as an angler, like you're trying to be a tournament angler, like these are my 4 things I have to hit each tournament.
Yeah, like I want to win, but the bottom, the top goal is winning. The bottom goal for me is top 50%. And I know that some people might say, well, that top 50%, but if you're going to go back east and compete for a living, and you're going to go to 7 different lakes you've never been, and you're fishing against, Justin Lucas and Kevin Van Dam and Mark Daniels and all these guys, if your worst finish is 50th%, you're going to have a phenomenal year, right? Like you're going to have a phenomenal year.
So could you, if you do the big tour and either one of them, and you finish the 50%, you think you can make it?
I do.
Did you do the math, like with the money, like be like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
I would go and be like, okay, what is this? What is 50th taken out of 200? Okay, this, like math.
So I'm very fortunate and blessed in that I'm moving back east regardless, and I'm bringing with me my career. So my career is very special in that it's able to support me, but it also allows me to fish a lot. Because it's kind of intertwined. The majority of my clients are bass fishermen, so I'm not. A lot of people go out there, they quit their job. I have some of my clients and really good friends of mine that have qualified. They're going back there. They put it all on the line. Like they quit. Like Mark Daniels, when he went back, he quit his job. It was like, this has to work, because if it doesn't, I quit my job and I move back to Alabama, and he made it work. So for me, I get to keep my career and still keep my income, but I can move back there because as long as I have a cell phone and a laptop, I'm good.
Yeah.
So I guess you could say maybe I have a little more leeway where I don't have to I don't have 2 years where I'm going to run out of money or anything like that. So I'm fortunate in that regard. But yeah, I've done the math, and I want to compete. I want to win. I want to be the best. I also know that there's a learning curve, just like there's a learning curve on the West Coast for me. There's going to be a learning curve going back fishing lakes that are 80, 90 miles long that I've never fished. You get 2 days of practice, and you're going against the best and the best and the best and the best that have fished those lakes for 20, 30 years. So you're going to have to figure it out right now. There's no, oh, well, if I get 5 years, I mean, I want to compete.
But you're like, what's your age right now?
33.
You don't have 5 years to fucking, you know what I'm saying? Like, so you got to do it now. It's like, there's no choice.
There's no choice.
You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah.
I feel good. I feel confident. And, the confidence is a huge deal. And I can honestly say I didn't have the confidence a year and a half ago. I had the confidence on the Delta because that's what I fish. That's what I'm known for. But going to the lakes and then this last, 16, 18 months, I'm like, wow, like I can compete with these guys, and I can actually, make top 10s and do really well on bodies of water that I've fished 3 days in my life. And so that's been really encouraging and a big, huge confidence boost for me. And then to tie that into the Apex, so the Apex, I know we talked about it a little bit last time, but we've had 2 events so far. One was at the Columbia River, which they had to change when we got there because it was like 45 mile an hour winds on the Columbia. And anybody that knows the Columbia, it's massive waves. It's huge. It's pretty crazy. So they redirected us to the John Day River, which is like technically I think it's like 7 miles long, but there's really only about 4 fishable miles of river. There was 32 boats. Never saw the river in my life. We got to do a 30-minute drive around the day before. And then the next day you're fishing against 32 of the best guys on the West.
When they do the drive around, I'm just wondering, do they make sure you have no rods? Nothing?
So yeah, you can't have any rods or anything. I mean, they have all we sign a contract basically that they can give us lie detectors at any point. So, and I would be shocked if one of those 32 guys did anything wrong because
I'm just wondering. It's just like a fucking idiot question.
Yeah,
like, I'm just like, hey, what? I wonder.
Yeah, like, no. So there was obviously the rule is no rods. You couldn't even basically you could drive around. You could drop your trolling motor. You just couldn't cast. You couldn't do anything. So you could grab, but 30 minutes. Yeah, I mean 30 minutes. That's it.
It's not long.
No, actually it's a lot shorter when you're actually out there and you look at your clock and you're like, dang, I just hit 1 point and I'm 10 minutes in and I got 7 miles to go. So,
that's doing. Some research with your points.
Yeah, and so yeah, you are able to research, public research, just like if I go back east, you can publicly research.
Like you got your Navionics chart, you're kind of
correct.
Like, okay.
And you can look online, but you cannot call anybody, you can't talk to anybody, period. Like there's no exceptions, no guide, no any of that. So so that event, that was interesting. I caught 1 fish in 2 days. I wasn't the only one. Actually, I wasn't even last place with 1 fish in 2 days. It was really tough. So not only was it 40 mile an hour winds, the few days before we got there, the John Day River got blown out. So it was muddy water coming down the John Day. We're stuck to 4 miles. You never fished it. It's ice cold. And, so it was crazy. And the other thing for me is I've fished for largemouth all the time. I've fished for spots the last couple of years. I never fished for smallmouth in my life.
Yeah.
Until this year. I've caught some. Like I've been to Berryessa and accidentally caught one. I've been to Shasta. Yeah, an accident, but I've never targeted them. And then the second Apex event was at Almanor. It was an amazing event. It was so much fun. I had an absolute blast. But again, that's smallmouth. It's all smallmouth. I don't think there was a single largemouth weighed in 3 days. And I had zero history. So I ended up in 24th out of 32. Not great. But, for me, I looked at it as I had zero smallmouth experience. I'd never been to the lake. Some of the guys had been there in the past. Not that that's an excuse, but I had no smallmouth experience. And quite frankly, it's kind of funny. There were some basic things about smallmouth that I didn't even know. So I caught one fish on day one. I caught 6 fish on day 2 because I figured some things out, and I was like, oh, their mouths are a lot smaller than they're called smallmouth for a reason. So, and these fish there actually I talked to some of the people there because you're catching a 3.5 pound smallmouth, and his mouth was unbelievably small. I talked to some people that were like, they're not usually that small, even though they're small. So I was throwing some stuff on day 1 that was like, dude, these things can't even fit in their mouth. Yeah. So lesson learned. But what Apex is teaching me to do is there's zero practice. I have to do all the research I can online, YouTube, whatever, and then Navionics, all that. But then you get 30 minutes to drive around and look, just visually look, and then it's go time. You got $2,000 on the line. Let's go right now.
Yeah.
And so, you know what it did? Even though I took 24th out of 32 and it wasn't technically a great event, I learned a lot. So for me, if I don't do well and I don't learn, that's a horrible event. If I don't do well and I learned a ton, that's not the end of the world. Like I learned a lot. It's going to benefit me.
Positive thinking.
It's positive.
Well.
It's going to make me money in the future. And so, but what it's teaching me to do is get really comfortable, even coming all the way back to the Delta that I fish 200 days a year, probably more than anybody in the last 10, 12 years, is it's teaching me to get really comfortable fishing with no practice or just fishing the unknown. Because there is no known at Almanor. None. Zero. I have nothing. I roll up to a point, I drop my trolling motor, I don't even know how deep it's going to be outside of my Navionics chip telling me, but I don't know if there's rocks on it. I don't know anything. So, and again, I had a decent day too. I caught 6 fish and it was a good experience. So, so that I was really excited even when I signed up this year for the Apex and I committed to it. I told my wife, I said, you know what, regardless of how I do, it's going to make me a better fisherman for going back east. Because back east, I'm going to get 2 days to practice on lakes that are 70, 80, 90 miles long. I've never seen in my entire life against guys that fish it for their whole life. So you better figure it out. You don't have the Delta. I can fish 200 days a year. I'm not going to have that luxury back there. So that's really helped me. We've only had 2 events. We have 2 more plus the TOC if I make it. So I'm really excited just to continue to it's making me think quick, learn quick, fish quick. And I think that's really key because it even played into this event on the Delta, and it's just giving me confidence that I've never had. I keep telling my wife I sound like a broken record. I'm like, babe, I feel like
I'm tired of hearing it.
Yeah, I'm like, I feel like I have this. I can't explain it, but I feel like I'm at this other level that I've never been at. Even when I've won Delta Pro-Ams and tournaments and Angler of the Years, but now it's different. Back then it was I fished a lot. I found some areas. I used those areas, and that's what it was. Now I feel which is 100% essential if you're going to be the best in the world or going back east, is now I feel like I kind of know I know what the fish are doing. I have some ideas where they are, and I'm going to figure out how to catch them on game day. I'm not going into it with these preconceived ideas of I'm going to catch them on a chatterbait. I'm going to catch them on this. I literally rig up 25 rods, and then and I mentioned this before we started, and I'll give you, I don't know if you want to ask a question or anything, but but the I'm living by this year moving forward. It's kind of my little saying, strategy, versatility, execution. And this is what I go into every tournament trying to perfect. And there's a lot to each one of those 3 words there. It's a lot deeper than just, good strategy, being versatile and executing. But that's really what I am as a bass fisherman, or what I'm trying to be and what I'm trying to perfect. And it's really helping me.
When you say that, did you change your whole method to your strategy? Okay, I'm going to sit here. Apex taught me to do the homework. I got to do the homework. Were you not doing that homework before, you think, because you were comfortable?
Great question. Definitely not that I wasn't doing the homework. I think the word strategy, I'm going to give you a perfect example. Literally the perfect example was this MLF we just had. I took second in. So I went into the tournament I told like 5 or 6 people, even actually Caesar here. I told him before the event started. I said I won't be leading the event on day 1. I probably won't be leading it on day 2. If I'm going to be leading it, if I'm going to win, I'm going to have a mega bag on day 3. The reason I said that is me and Ken Moss are good buddies, and we talk about every tournament about how much weight do you think it's going to take to win, and if you don't win, you're gonna be second for sure, right? Because you never know. I mean, you could win with 100 pounds, right? It's like golf. If everybody wins on that course with usually golfing a 60 and you golf a 55, you should win that tournament.
Yeah.
But doesn't mean you will, but you should win that tournament 99 out of 100 times. So we were talking. We said I think 60 pounds, 60, 61 pounds is the mark where if you get there, you should win the tournament. And we were right. I had 63 and I was second, but me and first were the only ones to break 60. So 58 was third. So we were right on where we said if you had to catch 60 plus, you should win or be second at worst. Mm-hmm. So my game plan to get to 60, and this is the strategy part, right? It's not just go out there and do everything and fish and catch everything I can. My game plan was I felt like I had 1 day's worth of running a lot of different water that I could catch a mega bag. But I also realized that I could maybe not catch it and bomb. It's the first tournament of the year. The biggest priority, like I mentioned earlier, was making the tour. I can't bomb on day 1 or 2 because I can ruin my entire year. Mm-hmm. So my strategy going in, how can I win? And I use this analogy. I said, but this is the way that my mind thinks. Uh-huh. I use this analogy. I said, if you were a phenomenal boxer and you had just mad endurance, maybe you weren't the biggest power puncher, but you were a great defender. You had a really good endurance. You were very strategic, and you were fighting Mike Tyson in his prime. Would your strategy be go in and say, I'm going to swing as hard as I can on round 1 against Mike Tyson? Here's
my comparison to that. And we're going to talk about Stockton. You're Nick Diaz.
There you go.
If you watch MMA, he takes him to the limit. He does a lot of those 60, 70% jabs.
Yes.
And he just keeps taking them to the limit till he can fucking either choke them out or knock them out.
Until they're gassed.
Until they're gassed. And that was your plan. So from what I'm understanding, what you're saying is that I'm going to figure out what I can do for the first and second day because I know I can get a decent bag those 2 days.
Yeah, so my strategy.
And then day 3, you're going to smash them.
And so it's crazy because it was kind of cool that I told some people this so they can validate that it's not like I just had a great day 3 and said it. But what was cool is I said, and I also had a weight in mind. I believed I needed 35. Actually, I even thought it could be as low as 34.
On one day?
No. I'm sorry. On 2 days to make the cut. The cut. So my strategy was get to 35.
In 2 days?
In 2 days.
Okay.
However you get to 35, get to 35. And I even told a couple people, I said, as long as I'm 10 pounds down or less, which is a massive deficit, right? 10 pounds is a little huge, but 12, 13, not realistic. But like I said, if I can get to day 3, 10 pounds down or less, I feel like I have a shot to win. And so my strategy going in was get to 34, basically make 10th or better. And I did. I actually made 10th by 3 ounces. I was 10th. I had 36.10, which is actually a little bit more than I thought. It was about 1.5 pounds more than I thought I was going to need. Mm-hmm. So my strategy on day 1 is I literally fished the Delta not to catch a 30-pound bag. And some people can say whatever they want, but this was my strategy. My best way of winning was not swinging on day 1 and 2 because the odds percentage, I always talk about percentages, of me doing it on day 1 and 2 may have been low. And I could have not even been sitting here because I might have been 50th place. So my thought was do everything you can.
No, you would have been still sitting here just saying.
Because
it's a more of a, like I always say, you could have fucking got last place. I'd still have you on because I like you.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Remember that. It's if I like someone, they're fucking coming on.
I appreciate it. So my strategy was get to 36 and be hopefully less than 10 pounds down or less. And I squeaked in. I was so happy. When I went home, Ish and Logan Hunts were 9 pounds ahead of me in first and second. Fourth was basically from fourth back, we were all tied, essentially. We were within a pound.
Yeah.
And I was so happy. I was like, I am so thrilled that I get to go do what I want to do on day 3. Because worst case scenario, if I bomb, I'm in 10th.
Yeah.
Right? On day 3, worst case scenario, I can bomb. I can take a great finish, get good points, and still continue on my path forward towards making the tour, even with the 10th. So I was able to do that. I ran 265 miles in 3 days. I covered a ton of water.
That is so far, bro.
It's not that I ran far to one area. It's that I ran the entire delta.
Yeah.
Some people, it's funny. They think they saw me in an area and I caught all my fish. And I'm like, you don't even realize. I was in one area for 45 minutes, 30 miles away. I was in for an hour, 35 miles away from there. I was in and whatnot. And so that my strategy was get to 35. I got to 36.10. And so even on day 2, so I had 21 on day 1. So this is how my strategy changed. I was like, okay, I got 21. What do I need to do to get to 36? 15. So don't get me wrong. I want to catch as much as I can on day 2, but my goal is 15.
Okay.
Get to 36 because I can't win if I'm not fishing day 3. I got to get to day 3 to win, period. Right? So don't go out there and swing for the fence and then come in with 9 and then not even make the top 10. So don't get me wrong. I wanted more because I only did catch 15 and a half on day 2. And it wasn't a great day, but I did what I needed to do. And then day 3, I got to go swing. I got to hit like 3 different key areas of the Delta. I got to do what I love to do. It worked out. So, and so when I look back at the event, as much as I want to win more than anybody I've ever met, and I put so much into it, it was not as hard as when I took second last time or some of the other tournaments because my execution was flawless on 3 days. My versatility, I weighed fish on probably 9 different baits, which is the way I like to fish. Even versatility in area, I fished the entire Delta. So those were flawless, and my strategy was get to 36 and then get to 60. However, you got to do that, and that was the way I could get to 60 is get to 36 and then weigh a mega bag.
You won. You won because you want to know why? You made a plan and you fucking executed it.
And
you know what I'm saying? So like in your head, it's like this worked. It's like whenever I try to do something and you go, I don't know if that's gonna work, and it worked. Even if you didn't do the best, you figured it out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like that's a win, dude. Even though second place is great, dude.
It is.
Fuck.
You know,
I know it's not first. Is that you took second twice then?
In the FLW, I have won 2 Pro-Ams on the Delta, but they weren't the MLF FLW. That's the one I really want. I won an English Choice Pro-Am. I won a 1 Bass Pro-Am. I've taken numerous top 10s in MLF or FLW and all the other Pro-Ams, but I want that first place MLF/FLW previously. I want that, and I have 2 seconds. 1 by 1 ounce and 1 by a pound and a half.
Do you fish with the Logan one, right?
Say that again.
Logan one.
That's the one. Logan one. Yeah.
You talked to Logan.
Yeah, I talked. We started talking more in the last couple months. And
he's a local.
He's a local. Yeah, he's a local hammer. He's a young kid, and I think he's
How
like
old is
20.
he?
I think he's 23.
Fuck, man.
Yeah, he's a local hammer.
What
man.
That's young.
Well,
man,
and he just lost to Harvey 2 months ago. He took second by 2 ounces in the Wild West Pro-Am. Dude. So look, as hard as second was for me. It was a good kid who's I call him a kid. He's 23, but good kid who's.
No, that's a kid. You're 30.
Yeah, 33. Yeah, he's a hammer. He took second by 2 ounces.
Hey, it's amazing to me. So they're coming on Sunday.
Yeah,
the brothers.
What a story.
Co-angler, dude. There's nothing else you could ask. That's like a perfect story.
What a better storyline, right? So dude. For like 3-4 minutes after when he weighed in, because I actually thought I was gonna win. I knew Ish didn't have him. I knew Nick Salvucci didn't have him.
That 2 of those guys, Nick Salvucci. I know who both of those are. To beat, I mean, they're amazing anglers.
Yeah,
you fucking beat them that's amazing.
Yeah, no, and it was.
So that should feel good. Like Ish, dude, come on. When I started fishing 11 years ago, my uncle goes, "Oh, Ish Monroe, frog guy. You gotta check him out. Yeah. Look at Ish. I'm like, all right, cool. So I'd read all of his magazines. I'd be like, oh, and I'm fucking old, dude. I'm 30, years old, looking at magazines, going, oh man, taking a shit, looking at magazines, and it's Ish. I seen Ish a million times. I'm like, fuck, man. Yeah. To do that, like, I understand. That's one where I'm like, oh man, that's a big accomplishment.
Yeah,
dude.
no, it is. It is. I'm not even mad. Like I said, as hard of a competitor as I am, it's probably the easiest not win I've ever had, only because like you said earlier, like I executed my game plan to perfection. I had 3 more pounds than I wanted, than I thought. I didn't lose anything. So at the end of the day, it's like I obviously didn't win, so I didn't win. But I look at it as you can lose a tournament, right? Like if I would have came in with 58 pounds and I told myself 60 is what it needs to win, I'd have said I didn't do enough. Or if I would have lost a key fish, I would have said that was my fault. Or if I would have, not made the right. But it's like when you do everything and you catch 63 and you don't win, did I lose or did it just wasn't my time?
Yeah.
And so for me, it was a little bit easier. And like I said, he's a great kid. His brother, I mean, what a better storyline, right? Or what? I mean, him and his brother both win. That's epic.
That's so crazy because it's like you're the co-angler, especially. You're not in control of the boat.
Yeah.
Like who's in charge of it? Like you don't even know. And the other thing is like how many? So since it's the Delta, since you're a tidal fishery, how many dudes come up here and actually do good? From not that are from here.
I think the Delta.
So everyone that took top 10, how many of them from the Delta?
It's a good question. Usually, I'll have to think about this for a quick second, but usually the top 10 on the Delta is probably 70 to 90% dominated by Delta locals. And I'm thinking of this tournament. You can kind of say Ish is a Delta local because not only did he grow up here, he still lives basically here, even though he's back east. So you can count him as a Delta local. Logan's a Delta local. Myself, even I think Mark Lassane is a Delta local. I mean, you can go down the list. And I would say Ken Ma. No, he wasn't in the top 10. But yeah. Long story short, it's really hard. Probably one of the, if not the hardest place that I know of to come from out of town and make the top 10 or do well. And even a lot of my buddies who aren't from here that do well in tournaments at Clear Lake and Shasta, they'll tell you the same thing. They're like, the Delta is so hard. And especially now, we talked about it in the last podcast, but the Delta is extremely tough. Even for a guy like myself who fishes here religiously, it is not I weighed 15 pounds on day 2 with a 6.5 pounder. My big fucking fish. Yeah, but my point is my second biggest fish. So I had 9 pounds for 4.
Yeah,
that's pathetic.
Yeah,
on the Delta, right?
Yeah,
but
right.
So that's my point is like it's not easy. I weighed 3 2-pounders and a 2.5 and then a 6.5 on day 2.
Yeah.
So you look at my day 3 bag and you're like, oh my gosh, it's epic. And my day 1 I had 21 pounds. I had a good bag. But you look at my day 2 bag and it's like, is it that epic when the guy weighs 4 fish under 2.5 pounds?
Yeah.
Is that epic, or is that like, man, you grinded everything you knew in your power to catch what you caught? So,
the other thing too is the tides. So like, that's one thing that you have over everyone else too, is like no one's fishing tides.
Yeah.
No one. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
And to me, like when I talk to them about tides, the tide's coming up. I fish the coastal shit all the time, so that's what I look at.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, a lot of people don't even know how the tides work, right? When they come from like a different state or down south,
Correct. And tides are everything.
Yeah.
Tides are everything. If you come to the Delta and you're not paying attention to the tides, you might get lucky and win a tournament 1 out of 100, but you probably won't even be heard of the rest of the 99. So they're everything. They're everything. And there's no question. If you come to the Delta, you got to know you got to know the tide. You got to know everything about the tides. You have to know, and there's a lot of way to approach the tides, right? There's do you run the tide, meaning you like one tide and you chase that tide upriver or downriver, or do you like certain areas on certain tides, or are you just going to bank that, man, I might not know much, but I know I got 1 hour in one area and I could catch my whole bag and I better be there on that tide because I don't have anything else. So there's a lot of different ways to approach the tide, but it's everything.
Yeah.
Like if you're not paying attention to it, good luck.
You're going to miss it, yeah.
You're going to, good luck.
So when you go back east and you're going to do the fishing, what are you going to take? Like, how are you going to start off? Like, I know you can't fish the lake every day. You know what I'm saying? Yep. So, like, how are you going to, like, break it down and go, like, all right, I'm going to take the chip and mark the spots out. You're just going to kind of hit a couple, 10 spots and kind of try to figure them out? Or
Yeah, good question. So, I'll say this maybe multiple times because it's truly where I think I excel and what I'm hoping carries me back east. Strategy, versatility, execution. So, strategy is doing all your homework. Game planning. How much weight does it usually take this time of year? So, like, right before I ever go to a lake, whether it's wherever, Okeechobee or whatever, never been there, but I also could do my history and see like, hey, this time of year, this is a good bag, right? Mm-hmm. This time of year, this is what makes the cut usually, within an ounce or, maybe a pound or two, whatever. So you do all your homework. You do all the public research you can. You try to find out the basic areas, right? And then I think, again, what I'm hoping is, so you put the best strategy you can, which strategy entails research, but then game plan. And then for me, I think what I'm really hoping is my versatility. And I'm, I tell everybody.
So you really have 25 rods?
More. I have 25. So it's funny. So it's funny because on one of the days on this pro-am on the Delta, I rolled up to my first spot. I think I had 14 rods on the deck. And so I fished the first spot for like 30 minutes. And then I'm like, all right, we're heading to the second spot. I open up the rod locker. I put like 7 rods away. I pull out like 10 more.
And you got
like,
a co-angler that
you
You don't even know. You
don't even
know.
Yeah, I knew one of them. He was a good buddy. But I pull out like 45 minutes in the morning. I put 7 rods away. I pull out 10 more. And he's like, oh my gosh, you're not kidding. You really do. Like, and so this is the true, honest to God truth. Like I weighed a fish on Bobby D spinner baits. I weighed fish on chatterbaits. I weighed fish on crankbaits. I weighed fish on Texas rigs, Cincos, swim baits, top water, drop shot. So, and I think that's one of my biggest strengths.
So when you do it, like for instance, are you tying on like 4 different drop shots?
Depending on what time of year it is. So like when there's something that's really hot, like now I might say that I'm ultra versatile, but if I get a preference, what I like to do, I want to punch, right? So punching is is we're on the Delta, right? Like that's the heart of punching. The funny thing is I actually only punched one fish in this tournament that I weighed out of 15 fish. And I know most of the guys in the top 10 pretty much punched most of their bags on it. But so I may say like it's a certain time of year, whether I'm throwing a toxic bait, swim bait, I might have 2 or 3 of them on. If it's not that time of year where I really like it, I might only have 1 on.
Yeah.
Or if I'm drop shotting, I might have, like right now, I think I had 2 different ones on. One in the rod locker, ultra finesse if I needed it. One traditional. I might have whatever. So the point is, when
you play by the year.
Yeah.
So you might have like 14 rods on the deck, but 4 of them are like a swim bait or crank down or whatever. It's got to be because that's going to play into that.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
But when it's not that time of year, like there's certain times of year that I'm like, hey, whether it's summertime on the Delta, it's punching in top water. That's 90% of what you do. That's 90%. So I want to make sure that other 10% that I'm good. Whether I need a little crankbait that I'm definitely probably not going to win on, but maybe I catch 1 key fish. Maybe I make 10 casts the entire day with it, but 1 is.
See, that's the crazy thing that your brain's going into it, and I'm going, fuck. You are thinking of every type of fish you can catch.
Correct. And
so you get there and you go, I might be able to catch a 1.5 pound, 2 pound fish, but I need that. So I'm going to fucking throw a little tiny Kitech. I'm sorry, what did fucking Jeremy said? It's K-Tech. I don't know what the fuck he said. Kitech, what I'm saying? Yeah. You're going to throw an underspin with a 2.8 Kitech on it, you know what I'm saying? For that little fish.
I want to catch.
You know what I'm saying?
You know what's funny too? Because like, especially on the Delta, you'll talk to a lot of guys and they're like, it's garbage, 2.5, 3 pounder. And I'm like, guys that win tournaments might weigh like we took 3rd in the Wild West teams out of 130 boats a couple weeks ago, and I think we weighed 2.5. So a 2.5 is valuable. So especially nowadays on the Delta, a 3 pounder is valuable 12 months a year here. Now, if you have all 3s, you're probably not going to win. But if a 3 is your smallest or your 4th, what if you have a 10, a 7, a 5, and 2 3s? Those 2 3s are a whole. If you were
and you don't know. That's the other thing. Like I fished tournaments this year, saltwater ones, and I did okay. One, I took 3rd in one. It was rookie division. And we weighed a 15-pound bag, sand bass. And I'm like, I don't think we got it, dude. I just don't feel like we got in. And I'm like, they're like, oh, stick around. I think you placed. I'm like, fuck, you just don't know. You don't fucking know.
You don't know.
So it was like people throw. I caught a couple 2-pounders. I'm like, I just throw them in. I think we can get bigger, but I don't know. You just don't fucking know.
No, and let me tell you something. I keep. Even on the California Delta, and outside of Bobby, but see, Bobby's been gone now for like 2 years, so maybe I've ellipsed him on time or passed him on time on the water because he's probably the only guy that has put more time in on the Delta. And I don't say that like pridefully, just because I fished 200 days a year for 15 years, right? So Bobby fished more than that, but he hasn't been here for a couple of years. But anyway, so I only say that because as much as I fish, in a tournament, when I catch a 2-pounder and it's my first fish of the day, I'm stoked. And I'm not throwing that 2-pounder away. I learned a long time ago. I fished with a very good fisherman at Lake Havasu the one time I fished there in January, and it was for $100,000 first place. It was the National Guard, and he was killing them, and it was really tough. Day 3, he caught a 13-incher. He threw it back. He's like, I'm catching way more than that. He weighed 4 fish that day, and he missed the top 5 cut by like 6 ounces. And so it was a 13. He was catching 3-pounders all day long. But that last day, that 13-incher would have made him in the top 5, and he would have been fishing for $100,000.
I'm sure that happens all the time, though.
It does. Yeah. And so for me, like, even on a Delta, if I catch a 13-incher or whatever, if it's 12 or whatever,
call it.
I'm putting him in the live well. I will measure it on the Delta as much as I fish and as much as I've done it. Like, it matters at the end of the day. Now, especially a 2.5-pounder. 2.5-pounder really matters. 3-pounder's like a little gold nugget. And then, you're not going to win if that's your biggest fish. But if a 3-pounder's your smallest fish, you might be having a really good day. Yeah. Nowadays, the Delta is a lot different than it was 10 years ago. But so anyway, going back to that versatility, I think one of my biggest strengths and what I want to take back east is I feel like I can weigh 30 pounds on a drop shot or on a wake bait or punching or on a frog or on a chatterbait or on a crankbait. And I think for me that really helps because when I approach any area in a tournament now, versus back in the day. Now I'm like, okay, I know where some fish are and I know when they like to eat. I know the tide when they want to eat. I don't know what I'm going to throw at them that day because I don't know. I might have been there 3 days ago and maybe there was some clouds or maybe there was some wind or maybe the water was a little clearer or maybe it was whatever. I don't know until I get there, but I'm going to have 25 rods and I know when to throw each rod. And so, I'm going to pick that rod up and go, oh, I haven't thrown this all year, but it's perfect right now for it. And so I can do that. And I think if you're going to compete back east, you can't fish yesterday. You have to fish right now.
Yeah.
You have to fish the moment, right? And so fishing the moment is not saying, well, I haven't thrown that bait all year, therefore I can't throw it. That's not fishing the moment. Fishing the moment is, hey, I haven't thrown that bait in 3 years, but man, everything in my body is telling me to throw it because of everything that's lining up. I'm going to throw it. Yeah. And so because you're not just doing it for randomness, you're doing it for reason. And that's where like trusting your gut, experience. And it took me years and years. And I actually fought it for years.
I bet, dude.
I fought it because I used to be the guy that I fished so much and I never fished things like the Apex or things out of my comfort zone that I'm not throwing that bait if I didn't throw that in practice.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Or if I rolled up to a bank and I caught him on a chatterbait the day before, or I found him and then I got there and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's too clear for the chatterbait, but I'm still going to throw the chatterbait. Why am I doing that? Because that's all I knew back then. So now you got to fish your instinct. You got to be ultra versatile. You better know how to do everything, especially in this day and age of bass fishing.
Yeah.
You better know how to throw, 10-pound test, 5-pound test, 100-pound braid, everything in between. Otherwise, you're going to miss opportunities. I think the days of being a flipper or being a reaction guy or being whatever, you'll have your moments. You'll have your moments even on the leads. There's guys that they're known for like, I'm going to do this. This is what I made my name on. I'm going to do it. But they're probably not the guys who are going to win Angler of the Year. They're probably not the guys that you're going to know when they're going to do well before the event even starts. You're like, oh, they're going to a finesse fishery. That guy's not even, he doesn't even have a chance.
Yeah.
I don't ever want to be known as that. I want to be the guy, hopefully, that
dude, anything.
Anything. Oh, they're going smallmouth country. He can win on a spinning rod. Yeah. Oh, they're going flipping, 50, 80-pound braid, punching, wake baits. He can win. He can win on it, offshore, onshore, dirty water, clear water, current, no current. And so, so that's, I think for me going back and then execution, I talk about this a lot with my really close friends. I say this because we're having a podcast. You're asking me these questions, not pridefully at all, but like I spend, gosh, I don't know how many hundreds of hours I've spent on perfecting execution on every technique possible. And I'm still like, now I might go through a new bait that might be a little bit bigger than and so I'm still trying to perfect. I'm not saying I'm perfect on everything, but I strive to have every detail of every hook, every line, every drag, every rod, everything about every bait of giving me the highest percentage chances of getting that fish in the boat. And I think a lot of people may think that, but they really don't do it. You talk to a lot of people, they lose a lot more fish than they should. So there's the fish that you are going to lose because it gets wrapped around a tree and there was nothing you could have done.
Out of your control.
Mm-hmm. But then there's fish you lose at the boat, or it jumps, or your drag, or your hook's bent out, or your line snapped, or it came off when you were fighting it, or you barely, all those things have to do with line, drag, rod sensitivity, or the parabolicness of a rod or not, the hooks you're using, the way you're fighting the fish, what angle is your rod at, how are you setting the hook on it, are you sweeping? So and again, I'm not saying I'm perfect by any means, but I feel like if I can, because, and I think I said this last time too, how many tournaments is there 3 to 10 guys who could have won that event? Most tournaments. It's rare that one guy ran away with it where nobody had a chance, right? Most events, somebody wins and there's another 5 guys who lost the fish that they could have won if they would have caught their fish, right? But they shouldn't have lost it. And again, there's the 2 columns there. There's out of your control and in your control. And I believe there's way more in your control than most people think. I talk to a lot of people who say, well, that was out of my control, and it really wasn't. It was in their control. And so I really try to perfect every bite that I ever getting it into the boat.
Do you take notes on this?
I take notes. Do you
have a notepad?
I do.
Oh, cool.
At home.
You're the first fucking dude
at home
I've talked to that actually fucking takes notes. Because I go, I'm not good at like remembering stuff. I remember like if I go, oh, work a drop shot or something this way. But all the little tiny things, like you're trying to perfect a bait, you're going to want to take notes and be like, when I put this drop shot on with this weight and it's tungsten, I need a liter this much. I need to, shit
and
like
dude,
that.
So it's funny because anybody that knows me will tell you every tournament that I go to, period, like everyone, I'm the last guy up. And unfortunately, it's I don't enjoy it because I get less sleep if it's raining. Like, we get off the water at 4. And then you're at Clear Lake or whatever, and you're retying for the next day. I kid you not, most people are done. They're going to get dinner at 7. I'm in my boat at 12 o'clock at night still.
Retying.
But you know what? It's crazy. Sometimes sometimes it's frustrating myself. But then when I think back and I'm like, but this is my strength. Even though it's frustrating. I want to go to bed, man. I got to be up in 4 hours. It's raining. It's cold out here. I'm freezing.
Yeah.
But I will sometimes look at a rod and a line and a hook in my line, and I will bend that rod, and I'll look at that hook, and for 25 minutes I haven't even tied anything, and I'm just like, especially if it's something that I don't, maybe it's a bait that's a little bit different than I usually throw, because I throw so many different baits. And I'm like, should I go with this rod? Should I go with this rod? No, that hook though is slightly this or whatever. But here's the beautiful thing. When I wake up the next morning and I step in my boat and I idle out, I never, ever question or have any, I never am the guy that's like, I should have retied. I should have put a fresh hook on. I did it all. So at least the good news is when I go out and I'm fishing for big money or small, it doesn't matter what it is. I don't care if it's the smallest tournament. When I start that motor the next day, there is no, geez, I hope I don't break my line because I didn't retie that line or whatever. No, everything is brand new hooks on everything I use the day of the tournament. That's frustrating. You know how 25, 30 different, a lot of times I use 25 rods, but I have 35 rigged up. Every hook will be brand new. Not every line. I'm not respooling every line, but I do keep a log on every one of my reels when the last time there was line on it. And at minimum, I'll cut 10 feet off of every, So there's so much prep, but that goes into execution, right?
So do you have a rod sponsor?
Not really.
This is my question to you, since you don't.
Okay.
You cannot execute what you want on one rod company.
Amen. So I'll say this. Phoenix has treated me really good.
What did you say? What company?
Phoenix is treating me really good.
This podcast is sponsored by Phoenix. It's our title sponsor. Thank you, Phoenix Rods.
Thank you. Vince Borges.
Vince Borges.
I know so many Vinces. Vince Borges is treating me really well, and he takes care of me. And I'd be lying if I told you I only throw Phoenix rods. I do throw a lot of Phoenix rods, and I love the rods.
What series do you throw? Freshwater.
So I throw. So here's the funny thing. And technically, I was sponsored by Phoenix, and again, I would still say they're a phenomenal rod. And again, I because it's a weird predicament because they took care of me and I used all the rods, but I realized at one point that it doesn't matter what rod company. Phoenix is phenomenal. I use probably more of their rods than any other one rod, but there's no one rod company who makes the best of every technique. It's just not out. It's not really even possible.
See, the cool thing is you're being truthful.
Try to always.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, the truth be told, it's like you'll never find the perfect rod company that builds every rod.
No, it's not even close. Yeah. If you named, I bet you, I'm not even kidding, the only rods that I don't own, and I'm not even saying these are bad rods. It's just I guess I just never. It just didn't the way it happened. I don't own an Akuma rod, and I don't own. Maybe that's it. I own everything. You name it. I own G Loomis. I own Dobbins. I own Powell, iRod, Phoenix. And because every rod, if I'm looking for a punch rod, dude, I went through like 10 different punch rods before I found and actually the punch rod I use is the Phoenix, but is the rod.
Which one do you use?
So a little twist to that. So it was the old M1 swim bait, medium heavy 8-foot swim bait rod, but the handle was too long. So when I found that rod, I used to use a Diaz $750 amazing rod. Yeah. But I noticed that when I first started punching 10, 12 years ago, whatever, I had the Diaz D's, and I had a bunch before that too, and I was losing too many on it. And then I got the Diaz D's, and I was like, okay, my percentages are pretty good. Not where I want them to be, but way better than anything I had. Well, then I started punching a lot, and I needed another punch rod. Well, at the time, I just had an 8-foot medium heavy swim bait rod that this is going way back. I'm like, well, shoot, that's close enough. I'll use it right now. So the problem is the reel handle was too far up. So I was punching with that rod, and it's not as, I mean, the Steez is the most sensitive. It's almost $800 for a rod, right? So, but I realized that I was losing, like every time I would lose one, which was rare, but it was on the Steez. And I was like, huh. So, but I'm like, but the problem with the 8-foot swim bait rod is the handle's too long. It's for swim baits. It's not for what. And I still use that rod for swim baits. So I said, well, let me call a rod maker. So I called the rod maker and I said, hey, if I had him send you this blank, can you back the rod seat up and then rewrap the guides? Mm-hmm. So I have 5 identical punch rods. They're all 8-foot medium heavy, but you can't even find them anymore, actually. So they don't make it anymore. They changed the blank. The M1s are now different, but it's the old 8-foot medium heavy swim bait rods, and I had all of them customized to make it a flipping stick. Yeah. And then I got.
Sit right for a second.
Huh?
Here, you guys didn't crash at the cat. My wife was asking.
Oh, let me.
It's not a big deal either way.
I don't know. My wife's next door, so I gotta.
It's not.
I'll call her.
I'm gonna take. Can I use the restroom real quick?
Yeah.
Hey, there's a guy.
Like, if they're gonna crash, I want to clean up.
Okay, let me ask her really quick.
Yeah, it's not a big deal.
She's next door at the
No, they
next.
need somewhere to crash. If they end up needing to crash my house, man, you just
got
to
it.
pick up if they're coming over.
Hey, did Paul come inside?
We'll get back to the Phoenix rod. So you wrapped 5 rods. You had them custom wrapped for you from Phoenix. But the thing that I like you're talking about is you can't get one. if you have to. And don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
If you're sponsored, you got to fucking do it. I get it.
Absolutely. You
But
have to.
In actuality, you're going to put fucking different rods together if you can.
And here's the deal, right? So, like, I get it. You're sponsored. You have to use what you're using. But let's be honest. Look at the technology game. Look what Jacob Wheeler and Justin Lucas and a handful of them did. They said, hey, look, Humminbird has a phenomenal feature, but Garmin has a different phenomenal feature. I need them both. If I'm only Garmin, I got this one cool feature, but I'm missing out on this other one, or vice versa.
Yes.
So they're like, screw it. They gave up their sponsorships, getting paid.
Just to have both.
Because they're like, I can win more money by not being sponsored and having both than I can by them paying me. And again, and I think, when it goes to rods, I'm not knocking any one rod. That's not who I am, but I am saying that being realistic, who in the world thinks that one rod company is going to make 30 of the best for every technique when there's 50 rod company, or who knows how many are out there, right?
And it might not even be the rod company. It might be like a custom rod like you did. Mm-hmm. You might be like, I love this blank, but I want this.
I need this on it. And so and I think, like, I look at that as that goes down to execution. So for me, like, some people have asked me, and now who knows where I am. Maybe you podcast me in a couple of years and I'm maybe fishing on the elites, and maybe.
But guess what? You might be changing because you made a living for your family and you got to do what you have to do.
Correct.
So you might have to change your technique, and you might I
might
run into that. Like, if they go, hey, you can't say fuck shit kind anymore. Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to give you this much. I got to really think about it. Like,
yeah.
If someone's going to give me, a six-figure contract,
yeah.
I'm going to be like, let me think about this, dude. Let me really think about this.
You have to,
like,
for your family.
And it's not, and that's nothing
decision.
Against anyone that takes a sponsorship like
Absolutely
that.
not. No, that's a business decision.
Yes,
You'd be
exactly.
I would be a fool if any rod company came to me and said, we're going to pay you $30,000, $40,000, and I said no, because I'd be a fool. I would take it and I'd say, I'm going to have to do the best that I can with what I have. But let's be honest, take that off the table. Apples to apples. There's no money on the table.
Yes.
If you are fishing any one rod company, I don't care if it's whoever it is, G. Loomis, St. Croix, it doesn't matter. And everything else is identical. And somebody else has the best, their punch rod is from over here, and their chatterbait rod is from over here, and their spinning rod is from over here.
Yeah.
From a percentage, which I'm all about percentages. I'm a math guy, finance guy, whatever. But in bass fishing, it's critical. It's all about percentages. It doesn't. I said this on the last podcast. I don't care. I go through this conversation so many times. I don't care what you catch. I don't care how big a fish you catch. I don't care if you caught a world record. I don't care if you caught 45 pounds. Mm-hmm. I care about what you lost, and I care about what your percentages are. So you might go out and beat me one day. Right, like, I'll give you an example, and I say all this because you're asking these questions. I don't ever want to come off as like
we're not trying to shit on anyone.
No, yeah,
you're just giving me example of things you've experienced.
And you're having me on asking me why I do what I do, and this is why I do it. Again, so I just don't ever want to come off as like prideful, cocky, or anything, because I'm not. But if you're asking me why I do what I do, so at Almanor, I took 24th out of 32. Right, not a great finish, but what I was happy on is I hooked one fish on day one, and I hooked 6 fish on day 2, all smallmouth. They all jumped. I was 7 for 7. A lot of my buddies fished it, and who beat me? They got more bites. They knew how to fish for smallmouth better. But a lot of my buddies were losing 30 or 40% of the fish they hooked. Now, they hooked enough of them to beat me, right? But does that mean that their execution was better than mine?
See, this is a great outlook, because that's the truth. It's like, I might have hooked 10, or I landed 6, lost 3, but they lost 30. You know what I'm saying? Like,
correct. So just because you beat me on weight doesn't mean your execution was better. Meaning you could, just because you beat me doesn't mean you can't improve on your execution. I might have had better execution. You just had way more bites because you knew where to go, right? Like, and so, or you just knew whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So what I can control is my execution. I can control my versatility. I can control my strategy. And those are what I can control. So for me, I think that's, going back to like, hey, you asked me going back east, what is your plan? My plan is to strategize, to do all the research, all the homework, to be, don't get me wrong. If I go back east, I'm on camera, it's fishing. When I talk about percentages, if you see me lose a fish and you're like, oh, I thought he said, I'm not saying I don't lose fish. No, but
when we say percentages,
highest percentage possible. So
you're making sure that you don't fuck any of these things up. If you break a fish off, that's not in your control.
Correct. You
knew the line, the cook, the fucking everything was
correct.
There.
So like if I'm punching hydrilla, I should be 100%.
Yeah.
If I lose 5 fish out of 100, that's too many. Now if I'm punching primrose, I've never seen it, I've never heard of it. I like if they get wrapped in the vines, you're gonna lose some. Now, So that's where, like, okay, if I punch a primrose and I lose one here or there, that's like if you catch a fish in the middle of a tree and you're trying to bring it out.
And you're learning.
And
you're still, you don't know it yet.
Yeah.
You don't know it yet.
But if you're telling me, man, I'm punching hydrilla and I'm catching 80, but I'm losing 20, I'd say, dude, you're way off. You shouldn't be losing any.
Yeah.
Maybe 1 out of 100.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be losing them, period. Like, even on a lot of, like, I differ on my approach to swim baits than probably anybody you've had on, and the way I fight my fish, my drag, the rods I use. But when I analyze it, I go, well, I have a higher percentage of landing big giant swim bait fish.
But you're doing it by percentages. So dudes are like, I don't want to lose a fucking fish. So they have, 30 pound, whatever they have. You're like, if I bring it to 17 or 20 or whatever it might be, I know I have a bigger percentage. I know I could fight it out of there. You're giving a 50-50 of like, well, can I lose it? Can I not?
Yeah, actually, a great question. I had a buddy who called me today, and he was asking me about big swim baits, toxic baits specifically. And we were talking about something. I said, listen, he said, because my approach from what he was telling me was way different. He was using braid and stuff, and I don't use that. But I said this. He said, I'm not losing any, and I'm not missing any. And then I said, listen, because we all set the hook different. We all lean the different way. We all have a different rod. We all have different drags, right? So what I do, and if you don't do it exactly how I do, you might not have the same success as I do, right? Like if you have a stiffer rod than me and I tell you, use this hook, set the hook this way, set your drag this way, you should be 95%.
Yes.
But if you set the hook 10 degrees different,
it's so weird because sometimes I'll set it like, I feel comfortable jerking to the right, but sometimes you have to jerk up.
Yeah, or whatever it may be.
Left,
but
whatever.
So my point was, so my buddy, and I said this, I said, listen, if something works for you and you're flawless on it, the only reason you should ever think about changing, the only reason is if you thought that what you're doing, that maybe everything you hook, you bring to the boat. That's great. That's great. Mm-hmm. The only reason you should ever think about trying something different is if you think that what you're doing maybe not giving you enough bites. So do you think that now if you're getting all the bites in the world and you're not losing them, I don't care what Kevin Van Dam, I don't care what anybody says. If I'm 100% or 98, 99% on something, then I'm not going to change. Now, if you're getting twice the amount of bites as me, even though I'm 100%, maybe you lose a few more, but like, dude, I'm getting 10 bites, you're getting 20. Maybe I need to think.
So if you're looking at like 10 landed, 20.
But you hook, no, I'm just saying, so like,
you're doing
hook 20,
yeah.
I hook 10. Now you might lose, maybe I
lost 5.
Maybe you're losing a few more than me, but you're also hooking double the amount. I might have to analyze something. So my whole point in all this, if anybody can hear this from me saying this, is all this is processing in my head 24/7. So it's not just like go out there and cast and hook a fish and whatever. Everything is like, when I cast this lure, what are my chances of getting into the boat? Can I improve that? Can I do something to get more bites? Can I generate more bites? And if I do, at what cost? What percentage am I going to break or lose off if I go up? So when I was at Clear Lake, I did pretty well at Clear Lake last month. I took like 24th out of 230 on the Cal Open. And one of the ways I had to catch them was I had to lighten it up a little bit in areas that you don't want to do that. But I weighed the cost. I broke off 1 or 2 fish, and I knew I went way lighter in line than I knew. But I also knew that, hey, I broke off 2 fish, but I also got 20 more bites than anybody else. So it was worth the cost, the risk-reward analysis. So like I do this risk-reward analysis on everything, and I do it on everything I do. And so, I don't know how.
Life as well.
What
you do with life?
Everything.
Have you ever seen that movie, Along Came Polly?
Yeah, long time ago. I couldn't even tell you what it.
Hey, watch it again. That's you. He fucking gets married to the girl and he does analysis. Like, it's a fucking great movie. You'll and it's like you and your wife would probably laugh about it.
Yeah.
But no, that's a great way to think about everything. Like, I mean, you if you're doing it for a living.
Yep.
So you got to figure a different way out. Yes.
I believe to be like in everything in life, I want to be the best possible. That doesn't mean I'm going to be. That doesn't mean whatever. But at the end of my life, I don't care whether it's in my marriage, whether it's with my kids, being the best dad I can, whether it's whatever it is. I want every day I analyze. Like I'll be fishing or whatever it is I'm doing, I'm analyzing. Am I being the best dad? Am I being the best wife? Am I being the best fisherman? Am I being the best investment advisor I can possibly be? Am I being the best friend? Am I being the best son? Am I being the best? And I mean the best. Mm-hmm. So, and that's just in my nature. So, and I'm not saying, I'm not saying I'm perfect or anything. I'm just saying that's my mentality on everything. So when
you're trying to give 100% of what you can give.
Yes, because 99 could cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. It could change the difference of you being the best bass angler in the entire world and not even making the tour. 1%. 1%. You could be 99% on one tournament, the one tournament that gets you the breakthrough because you were 99%, not 100. You lost one fish, and maybe you don't make the tour, and then you go back to a normal life. But if you would have caught that one fish that you lost halfway to the boat, you made the tour, and then all of a sudden the next event you win, and then you become the greatest angler of all time. So every fish I lose, I analyze. It's critical to me. Like I said, I lost 2 fish in this last tournament.
How much GoPro footage do you have?
0. I don't do GoPro.
Are you fucking serious?
None. I actually am old school in that regard. I'm very secretive. I'm very quiet. I'm very...
No, I would say to even self-analyze
myself.
Yeah.
No, I will say, though, no, so I don't do that. But I'm very aware of, like, everything. So I analyze. So, for instance,
will you come home when you do your notebook and go, okay, I fished this area. Say I put 6-pound fluoro onto my fucking 15-pound braid to drop shot, and I got broke off twice. But
good question. So when I log everything, I note I take notes every day I fish. I log more in line with, and I've actually changed over time a little bit. I log where if I caught a fish that was solid, that was worth it. I'm not going to log a 1-pounder. But, like, if I caught a fish, what tide, what time of day, or, what the tide was doing, what the weather was, and whatnot. So when it comes to line and all that, I think it's because I fish so much. That's just logged in my brain.
Yeah. It's like a muscle memory.
Yeah, so I know, like, when I go to... I know, but what's not muscle memory is when you fish 200 days a year for years and years and years and years and years, and you think back like, man, should I check that bank? I think I caught him in May there before an outgoing tide, but you fish 4,000 days, and then you look back in your notes and you're like, oh man, I was way off. That was actually March on a high tide. That's a massive difference, right? So that's what I log. But when it comes to,
do you have anything that's like not IPA, like a 4 point or 5? Because I'm gonna get fucking trashed and I'm gonna get in trouble. You don't have anything that's not fucking huge, like.
Let me check.
So I'll tell you this. What I do know is when I find something that works, like if I'm using Sunline Sniper 7-pound test for whatever, and it works, it will never change. And like,
look at that, Phil. They still have the same fucking bottle, dude.
Gosh.
Get the fuck out of here. I don't even want to look at that. If we're trying to fish in the morning, I'm not looking at that.
Oh my gosh. That's funny.
But
so like when I use the same, so even when, you talked about rods earlier, same with my lines. So I use 3 different braids. I use 3 different braids. I use 3 different fluorocarbons. I use 2 different one different copolymer. I use 2 different monos. Because certain pound test isn't whatever. So I'm not like, I'm using Seagar and VizX for everything. Well, Seagar and VizX is pretty good for certain things, but then there's lines that are better for high impact. And it's taken me years to figure this out. There's lines that are better for casting. There's lines that are better for different things, right? So like I use Sniper for 12-pound test less. I use a BrazeX for certain things. I use, actually, it's funny. I don't even own braid over 50-pound test, and I live on the Delta, and I punch and frog. But
what do you punch with on the
50-pound 832? Who makes 832? Suffix 832.
Really?
But see, I punch with a softer rod and lighter drag than anybody I know.
What kind of reel are you using?
I use I use like 3 different ones. I use a 9-to-1 rocket. I have 3 of those.
Fuck, really?
And then, I know some people are. So here's the thing, right? You hear people talk about punching and lower.
So the closest I can get to punching is, we'll sometimes in the kelp down in Calico, we'll throw into the kelp, kind of let the lead head drop down in the kelp to the bottom of the stringers. Kind of the same shit.
Okay, yeah.
But I'm using like a 7-to-1. But you might have a better technique, so like a 9-to-1 might make sure you're gonna rip that fucker out quick.
Well, here's the thing. So here's my thought. And me and Justin Lucas, we're really good friends, and we had this conversation. So there's a lot of guys, really good punchers that what works for them works for them. I'm not saying whatever, but they'll tell you lower gear ratio, you have more power. But here's the thing.
The torque you're looking for.
Yeah, but the torque. But here's the thing. I've never in my life used the reel to get the fish out. I use the rod. I lift with the rod and reel. I don't keep my... So torque would only matter if you left your rod in one position and you cranked. Then torque would matter. That's not how I punch a fish out. I lift up and get him out with the rod, and then I reel the slack down. Yeah. So the only reason I want the 9-to-1 is I want to pick up every inch of line as quick as possible, especially if he gets out of the mat and it runs to me. I don't want slack line. So now, I don't know, maybe other people do it different, but for me, when you really think about it, any fish I fight, period, I don't fight any of them with the reel. I pull and then reel, pull, reel. Maybe that's me.
Everybody's doing that. I mean,
that's the only way I've ever seen anybody. And then you reel. Yeah, but you don't... set the hook, and just keep it in one. You pull it and then reel down the slack.
Yeah, bring your. Everyone does
right.
that.
And so, and I think I was telling my buddy this too today on the phone. We were talking about big baits, and I said, dude, I'm telling you right now, you want to get better at percentage execution in big fish, go striper fishing every single day you can in October and November, and catch every striper you can on big baits.
What size reel are you using when you striper fishing?
I use all my bass stuff. And I catch up to 30-pound stripers.
7 to 1, 9 to 1.
Yeah, the only thing I use a 9 to 1 for on the Delta is flipping. I do use like an 8 to 1 on a frog. That's only because they don't make a 9 to 1.
You think I can catch a striper tomorrow? I'm going tomorrow. Have you seen this? Look at. Have you seen Tanner's bait or not?
Oh, wait, whose bait is that?
Fin Bait Custom. I can hook you up with him. He's a cool
dude.
He
I'll throw that. Hey. If you want to go straight, hey, look, you'll get my blood boiling here, or not boiling.
So look at that. That's he's a Big Rob down south. He's a big striper guy. Ooh. They fish those. You know that dude?
What's that, like 15
NorCal
inches?
Cat.
16 inches? What is that?
I don't know. It's big. It's called the Big Grandpa.
Smokes.
NorCal Cat. You know that guy?
I don't know.
He's a striper guy up here.
Okay.
No, Delta. Oh fuck. Who's a big striper guy up here? He was on Jake's podcast.
Oh,
Delta something.
Okay, I think I know who you're talking about, but
he fishes that bait too.
Jeez,
up here,
dude.
So it's all balsa wood. So he made it so you could throw a lighter rod on it.
So if you want to catch some on this and you don't catch any tomorrow, come back in October, November with me. Hey, I'm gonna tell you something. I get excited talking about stripers.
I love stripers too.
I don't want to sound cocky here, but I murder stripers.
You eat them.
I do.
I'll fucking eat stripers. It's fine.
No, I do. No, absolutely. I'm not ashamed to say it at all. I'll keep my 1 or 2 here and there, but I'll go out and catch 80 stripers in a day, and sometimes not keep any. Sometimes I'll keep 1 or 2.
Yeah.
A lot of times I take people out, and I'll have them keep their limit. But we had a day. I might have told you this last time. We had a day. I kid you not. I'm not an exaggerator. We count. I keep track. I hate when people exaggerate. My best friend and I, the most epic day of my entire life, we caught 209 stripers in one day. I caught
you and Tanner are both big stripers.
Tanner knows how to catch it. Yes. Tanner knows what's up.
I got to get Tanner back on too. I think I didn't get him up. I wanted to break this time, guys. I want to go fishing tomorrow with Caesar for a little bit.
For sure.
And then go to dinner with the wife. But both you guys had a great. If you guys want to listen back to that episode, he does. We cut him off when we're drunk, but he does give some good nuggets of information.
And I'll get back to the bass. But the reason I told him to go striper fishing is because I think so. I just got back from Yosemite and I was trout fishing the last 4 days. I caught a couple really nice browns, and I think fishing for stripers has made me such a better bass fisherman because it's taught me how to fight big fish. So many guys lose them. Big baits, big fish, lose them. Oh, you're going to lose them. And I might be on camera someday and you might see me lose a big one. I'm not saying I'm perfect. But I am saying I very rarely lose them on big baits, big treble hooks, big everything. But because I fish for big stripers.
Yes.
You can't horse a 25-pound striper in. You can't, or at least I can't. So, but I learned that when I don't horse them, I catch them. So I treat an 8-9 pound largemouth on a big bait the same way. Now, and again, I'm not knocking anybody else. I'm not knocking anybody you've probably had on your past. I know you've had a lot of big swim bait guys on.
But this is the big difference. This is why I like having you on.
Yeah. So
you do it
different
as a tournament angler.
Yeah.
And even I want a next question. We'll keep finishing and I have another question.
So I was going to say, I use a softer rod. I use softer drag than any swim bait guy I know. They look at my rod and they're like, dude, are you kidding me? But I'm like, but I don't lose them.
Yeah.
So if I put them in the net, that's all that matters.
But you learned how to fight them.
But I learned how to fight them. Mm-hmm. And I learned by catching so many 8 to 20 pound stripers on big baits that you can't horse them. And so if I can't horse them, then how do I fight them without losing them? And that's really helped me. Or even trout fishing in the mountains. I'm using 4, 5, 6 pound tests and ripping current on these beautiful browns with barbless hooks, and I can't lose them. And so that's on the opposite side of the spectrum of just fighting fish. It's about fighting fish. And I think so many bass fishermen, and again, I'm not saying anybody in specific. I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just saying I think so many bass fishermen don't know how to fight fish. They get into bass fishing, and all they see is set the hook reel as fast as you can. And there's time to do that. You see me punch a lot of fish, you're going to see Phil set the hook and the fish is in the boat in 3 seconds.
Your technique's different. Punching is like you're pulling it out of that shit. You need to get it out quick as you can.
And you have momentum on your side. He's coming. You're close combat. You get him in the net or you flip him in the boat right now. But if I'm out 80 feet on a cast, whether it's a big toxic bait, swim bait, big single hook, I don't care what it is, there's a proper way to fight it. And I just think that for me, catching thousands and thousands of stripers has really taught me how to catch, and I translate that, and now I catch these giant largemouth, and like I said, I do it different than a lot of people, but all that matters.
You
is
do
percentage.
it. This is a cool thing. I feel like you do it as a tournament angler catching big swim bait fish, because you got dudes like Oliver. He's fishing. He's trying to do the opens. He might be fishing that bait as a swim bait fisherman trying to fish. Much, maybe not. I don't know. But what I'm saying is, like, you grew up fishing like a tournament style for a long time.
Yep.
So the other thing I have for you now is that I've asked Palanick, I've asked Oliver, you are incorporating the big bait into your game when you fish on the Delta.
Anywhere.
How much has that played a factor into you winning? Or even you doing good? Like, have you said, hey, this crankdown's going to work fucking perfect. I'm going to hit it right here. Like, how many times have you had to go to this big bait?
Perfect. I literally had this conversation earlier today. It's almost like a pre-podcast with a buddy. He was asking me the same questions. The greatest thing I ever learned. So I was the first one to ever own a toxic bait swim. Me, Tanner, and Caesar.
Yeah.
This goes back, maybe 15 years almost.
Yeah, and they talk. You guys talk about it.
So this is 15 years of built up learning, struggling, everything in between. The biggest advice I have for somebody when it comes to big swim baits as a tournament fisherman, I'm only a tournament fisherman. I'm not a non-tournament. I'm 100% tournament guy. I'm not a big bass guy that I'm out there just chasing. I mean, I want to catch big bass in tournaments, but you know what I'm saying. The biggest advice I can get is know when to put it down. And here's what I've transitioned to a lot. I've won a lot of money on toxic baits and swim baits, all swim baits, single hook, top hook, talons, different things. I haven't thrown a lot of HUDs or anything like that, which is kind of weird as much as I throw swim baits. But I've thrown a lot of big baits and won a lot of money on it. I've also killed myself on it more times than not. And it took me 10 years to realize a swim bait to me, for me now, like I said, this is the way that I fish now, is one of my 25 rods. I don't plan on going out. And I told myself, do not ever go into a tournament, especially multi-day tournament, thinking you're going to win on a big swim bait.
Yeah.
That's 1 in 100. Now, could I win because of the swim bait? Could I have caught 1, 3, 5, 7 fish out of 15 on it? Absolutely. But I want to go into every tournament. This is the way I do it because I've learned the hard way so many times, especially on a multi-day event.
Yeah.
I want to go into a tournament knowing that that I found winning fish in an area. And I was able to catch them in practice or figure out how to get a couple of the right bites. And I have no clue how I'm going to catch them on game day. I just know where they live and when they eat. And I'm going to roll up with 25 rods, and 1 or 2 or 3 of them will be a big swim bait. And if and when I throw it, I might make 0 casts, 1 cast, 10 casts, 100 casts, or 400 casts a day with a big swim bait. And I don't know before the day even starts. I don't even know when I go out.
Yeah.
I did the tournaments where I said, I'm going out throwing a toxic bait 8 hours a day. And I came in with my tail between my legs going, I just blew my whole entire FLW that I waited 12 months for on day one because it didn't work. Now, don't get me wrong. I've thrown it all day and weighed 30-pound bags and won tournaments on it. Yeah. So I learned when to throw it and when not to throw it. And to me, all it is a tool that's in my tool bag. That's it. It's no more, no less. So when I pull it out, it's like if you have a tool bag and you're a construction worker. And I say, Nick, how bad do I need to lose this? And I keep talking to you about a screwdriver, and you're like, well, yeah, you need to learn it.
But here's a hammer, bro.
But you also need to how to use it as this wrench and, this hammer and this saw and all this stuff. Like, yeah, I'm glad that you want to know about that. But once you learn it, you put it in your tool bag, and you don't take it out until you need it. And so you learn, in general, what are the time of years that it's most effective,
Conditions.
Conditions. And then that might come out a little bit more. And then even in the times, and then you learn in the times of year when it's not effective at all. 0 effectiveness or as close to 0 as possible. Then it might not be
percentages.
It's exactly right. And then you know when, hey, it's not the worst time, it's not the best time, but I'm going to have it on the deck, and I may make 2 casts the entire day with it, but I won the tournament because one of those 2 casts that looked perfect for it, it wasn't the ideal time of year, but it was like, hey, that position, like for instance, everybody knows a crankbait is better in colder water. Right. I mean, for the most part, there's the outliers. Yeah. There's the deep diving that they get on the summer ledges and stuff. But I'm talking about, like, most people know, even statistically, your biggest crankbait fish are going to come in colder water. Yeah. So, but I'll have a square bill on 12 months a year. Now, I'm going to focus on it and lean on it maybe more in, February, March, April, May, June. But I might pick it up in August when I'm frogging and punching all day. And that's how I don't even think about a crankbait. But I roll up and I'm in between a frog and a punch spot, and I'm like, look at the way way the current's hitting that little weed edge right there. Let me make 2 casts with that crankbait. Oh, there's a 3 1/4.
Yeah.
I won the tournament by a half pound, and I called out a 2 with the 3 1/4 because the crankbait.
Yes.
I weighed my 4 biggest on the frog and the punch, but that crankbait, which I just had it on the deck because I knew that maybe somewhere out through the day I might use it.
Yeah.
And so that's the way I fish a swim bait. I know some guys are different, but if you're in a tournament mode like I am, so I'm different than the big bass chaser I'm going out throwing this all day long.
Yeah.
It's going to be on my deck because it's a tool. And then again, there's maybe 2 or 3 months a year where it's not on my deck at all because it's not even effective. It's just like I'm not for me now. Maybe for somebody else, I'm not going to throw a big wake bait in December or January.
But the big thing that plays into everything you're talking about is percentages, man. Like you're taking
Exactly
everything
right.
and going, what is this going to do? You have 25
Correct.
rods. How many percentage? What am I going to get bit?
Correct.
So you got numbers in your fucking head, and
All
you're
day.
looking at 25 rods and going
Yep.
like a fucking scale.
And so you're right. So not only does it go by time of year. So if you said, Phil, it's January on the Delta, I'm going to tell you the 5 most high percentage baits. But there might be another 5 or 10 or 15
That are 50%.
Yeah, or they're
you know, like,
lower.
yeah,
They're
yeah.
lower than that, but they have a very strategic, a very key cast where I'm like, I wasn't planning on throwing this bait very much at all, but there's one cast that just looks perfect. And guess what? There was that one fish there. And so that goes percentages go into execution, but they also go into baits of like play, like right. So I don't punch much I do punch some, but I really punch 12 months a year. But like maybe I don't punch as much in January.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So the percentages of winning a tournament punching on the Delta in January, at least, maybe somebody can tell me different.
15% or 10%.
Probably less.
Okay.
Probably less. Probably 2% or 1% or
But-
0. But so what I'm saying is, so when I look at that extreme percentage, I might have one rigged in my rod locker. It probably ain't coming out because that's the almost 0. But now if there's something that gives me a 20%, but don't get me wrong, it's in my rod locker.
So like a 20% rod bait setup would be like a drop shot.
Drop shot at 12 months a year.
That's like 25%.
Year round.
Yeah, all the time.
And there's certain times a year it's way more effective.
Yes.
And then there's certain, but it's always effective.
But this is a cool thing. The way you break down the percentages is like I think something. I'd go, hey, here's a couple baits. Yeah, I'm gonna tie them up. I think this is gonna. I don't go break down it like you were taking each bait and going, this fucking drop shot when this line's gonna give me this much. This is gonna. That's a fucking.
So let me give you a thought.
Okay.
You think of up north smallmouth fishing.
Mm-hmm.
First thing that comes to your mind. I don't know what comes to your mind.
Spinner bait.
What else? You're on the Great Lakes.
Tube.
Okay.
Because I've caught them on.
What names come to your mind? What names come to your mind?
The owner fucking tube hooks. Little like.
Okay. But what elite anglers come to your mind? We're smallmouth country. Smallmouth country.
I don't fucking know.
Okay. Well, so my point is this.
Yeah.
My point is this. You might think of, hey, we're going largemouth flipping. There's a lake. It's dirty. It's a flipping lake. So you go into the lake. Everybody knows if you're an elite angler. Everybody knows we're going into smallmouth territory. It's crystal clear. It's going to be a finesse deal. 5-6 names come to your name: Justin Lucas, Josh Bertrand.
Okay.
Aaron Martins, whatever. Why do they come to your name? Why do they come to the forefront of your mind? Because they're doing the high percentage things. The reason you may not, I'm not even going to say any name, even though I don't know them, because I don't want to say anything negative about anybody.
Yeah.
But the reason you may not think of some anglers is because and I know, and the whole world
They're
knows,
not going to hit them.
they're stubborn and they're a flipper. And it's like, do you really think you're going to go win in smallmouth country with a flipping stick or a reaction bait? Like, could you catch some fish? Yeah, but we already know the tournament's going to be won on a drop shot or a Ned rig before the tournament started.
Yeah.
Maybe a rip bait, maybe whatever, right? Or vice versa. You go down to Okeechobee, you think of whoever you think of, the Lane brothers or whatever, right? Why don't you think of the finesse guy? So my point is, you need to know that, hey, I can't be a finesse guy. I don't ever want to be deemed. I never want to be deemed a Delta guy. Well, I don't. That's what I'm trying to get out. I don't want to be deemed a Delta guy. Why don't I want to be deemed? Because I don't want to be just known like, hey, if they go to the Delta, you can catch them. Well, what about if I go to Clear Lake? Am I not?
I want to be able to catch them anywhere.
I want to be known as, hey, man, if the punch bite is good, Phil can win? No, I want to be known as, dude, it doesn't matter what time of year it is, what the elements are, he can win. Why?
Yeah.
Not because he's a puncher. I love to punch. It's my favorite way to catch him. But because of versatility. That's why I have 25 rods. And I'm comfortable, not just have them. I'm comfortable. So, and I think, like I said, you go back. I mean, look at, again, there's a lot of elite anglers that are, they even brand themselves at, I'm a shallow water bank beat.
Yes.
Or I'm a deep water ledge guy.
Or Ish.
Yeah, Ish is
What do you know him as?
phenomenal power fisherman.
Dude, that's what you know him for.
Dude, Ish is a hammer. He's a power fisherman, and I'm not Ish is cool. I love Ish. I mean, I've got to really, I can't say I got to know him much more, but I've talked to him a little bit more in the last year. But like, he would probably tell you that most of his money is one power fishing, right?
Exactly.
But so for me, like, if I'm going to start my career at 33 and trying to go back east, I don't want to be known as that. Look, a great example. Look at Mark Daniels.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Daniels came from the California Delta.
Yeah.
Puncher, frog, heavy, power, get in there, dirty, freaking get in the weeds, get in all that. But he goes up to smallmouth country and he can win. You know, he won at was it Oha or whatever it was, and whatever. And he's a threat there. And so that to me that's what I look at in a bass fisherman. Like, he's well rounded, right? The guy can do everything and he can win at everything. And I think that's the key in this day and age. If you're trying to be a tournament bass angler and you want to be the best, I'll tell you this: if you want to be the best, you better get comfortable with every technique, flat out, period. Like, period. You better get ready with every technique. Work on your execution, because here's the thing: the day and age of the old school, which I love, I'm more of the old school mentality, although I've learned that you have better embrace new school. Mm-hmm. So the old school mentality before the internet, keep everything to yourself, whatever. And now you have this new school mentality, and they got YouTube, they got podcasts, they got all these things. And so the separation of somebody who is dominant and not the separation is getting less and less because of YouTube, the internet, podcast, all that. So if you are going to separate yourself, you better, you have, like, for me, how am I, like, when I think of myself, how am I going to separate myself? It can't be a bait, because everybody now knows about every bait. It can't be whatever. It has to be everything across the board. Every detail. I was talking about this outside earlier. The little details are the biggest differences. If you're a professional athlete in any sport, it's the littlest details that are the difference between the Floyd Mayweathers and the Mike Tysons. And it's not the big things. Because you either have, you either have it or you don't.
It's almost like a work ethic.
Yeah, it's exactly what I'm saying. But you either have it or you don't, right? Like, in certain things, you're either like, look, I'm not a golfer. I tried a couple times. I literally couldn't even hit the ball off the ground at the thing. So I don't have it. Now, you have a big group of guys that have it. Now, what's the difference between the guys that have it? The difference between the Tiger Woods and whoever else is the little details, the extra work, the extra film they're watching, the extra. So you could say there's thousands of guys who have it, but then what separates those guys, right? So in bass fishing, it's the same thing. There's some guys that just aren't made to fish, and then there's thousands of guys that are made to fish, and what's going to separate me from those thousands? And it's got to be every single detail of every single thing I do, all the way down to, people were kind of making jokes about it. It was kind of funny, but when we were at Almanor, they were like, nicknaming me Mr. Spare, because I had a spare lower unit, 2 spare props, a spare power panel, a spare trolling motor, 2 spare batteries, 1 spare battery in my boat 24/7, 1 spare battery in my truck, and I have all these spare things. And my thing is, like, that could be the difference of my entire fishing career. One day I could break down, and it could be the difference of me not winning a tournament or me winning and then qualifying to something. And so, like, those are the things I can control. I can control having another lower unit, another power, whatever. And so, you do everything you can. So anyway, I know I'm probably on a tangent right now, but what are questions that you had? And I know it's
you've answered all my shit, man.
I'll say this: you did ask me about tides. I know you mentioned about tides, so I'll say this: the one thing about tides.
Yeah,
I think I said it last time. Tides are the best way to understand tides. Imagine a dinner table and imagine how many times a day do you eat? You, me, whatever.
Yeah.
Now, we all might occasionally eat something when it comes by, right? But there's set times. Nick is going to probably eat somewhere around whatever that time that is.
10, 12,
whatever.
4, 5, whatever. Yeah.
Whatever. And you're going to be at that dinner table at 4 o'clock. Guess where you're not going to be at 3 o'clock? You're not going to be at that dinner table. Right? You're not going to be at that dinner table at 3.
I'm going to be there maybe 5 minutes before.
You might be there at 4:55 if you're going to eat at 5. Like, you're sitting down, your wife's putting the food on the table, and you're like, whatever. Right? But, like, you're not going to be there at 2:30.
No.
And that's what tides do on the Delta. So what people don't understand is it's a dinner table everywhere you go. And they don't all eat at the same time. Just like human beings. Some people eat at 8 at night. Some people eat at 4 at night. Some people eat at 10, 7, 6. So you need to know on each spot. And the tide actually tells you why they're there and when they're there. It's the perfect opportunity for them to eat. And every area is different. Not even area. You can take Frank's Track. You can fish Frank's Track 8 hours a day. Now, they might eat on this side on that Thule point on 30 minutes a day, but then on the back side they eat on a different 30 minutes a day because of the way the tide is and the depth and the drop off and and speed of flow. I think speed of flow is maybe one of the most underrated or under talked about things when it comes to tide. Everybody talks about incoming or outgoing, but nobody talks about speed of flow. Speed of flow is massive. Well, how fast is the tide moving? That's the juice.
You need big tide drops, small tide drops.
Well, it's all different depending on time of year, but there is a magical speed of flow.
Yeah.
So when that speed of flow hits is very important. So I think for people need to understand that if you're going to come to the Delta, you're going to look at tides. It's not that there's one tide that's better. When I ran 265 miles in 3 days, it wasn't because I was chasing one tide. It was because I knew that, hey, over here they eat on the high switch, over here they eat on the high outgo, over here they eat on the low switch, over here they eat on the medium income, over here they eat on this, and I need to be on all those places at the best perfectly timed that they eat, right? And so when it comes to tides and breaking down the Delta, don't get me wrong, there's overall tides that are like, hey, this time of year, this tide is generally the best. But that doesn't mean you can't win on another tide, but you have to learn what are you going to do on these other tides or times a day and stuff. And so,
it all plays back to what you're saying, percentages, bro. Like I think if you could take anything away from this podcast,
percentages.
It would be percentages from what you're saying.
Percentage and everything, right? Execution percentage. That's huge.
Dude.
Nobody talks about it. So again, remember this if you're listening. I don't care, and I don't say this disrespectfully. I say this to help people. It doesn't matter what you caught. 99 out of 100 people that have these conversations with me, they always want to tell me what they caught. But Phil, I caught 35 pounds. But Phil, I won a tournament. But Phil, I caught a 12-pounder. But Phil, I won so much money. That doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
What matters is what you lost and what your percentages is. All I care about at the end of the day is I don't care if somebody won less money than you on that technique specifically. What was their percentage out of per 100 fish?
Yes.
If you hooked 100 fish, how many you landed in the net? I don't care how much money. So, like, I remember when I used to watch Kevin Van Dam, I think I said this in the last podcast too. When I used to watch Kevin Van Dam, I noticed for years and years, you watch him on TV, and especially when it was super hot, the guy never lost a fish on a treble hook. Never lost a fish. Like, it was like, I'm sure he did, obviously, but it's like he never lost one.
Yeah.
And then you see these other guys, and Kevin Van Dam wins. Kevin Van Dam wins. He wins by 1 pound. He beats this guy out. That guy lost a fish. That guy lost a fish. That guy lost. Why didn't Kevin lose a fish?
Yeah.
So then I was like, okay, listen, no disrespect to Kevin. He's the greatest of all time, but I don't care what Kevin has to say about flipping. I don't care what Kevin has to say about single hook baits. I don't care what Kevin has to say about finesse, because that's not what he does.
Trouble.
And that's not what that. So if Kevin was trying to tell me about punching, and this is zero disrespect to him, this would go with anybody. Like, if I wouldn't, and again, I say this respectfully, I wouldn't go to Ish Monroe looking to figure out how to catch him on 5-pound test on a spinning rod.
Exactly.
I'd go to Ish Monroe if I want to learn how to, hey, maybe what do I need to do better on a frog or punching or whatever, right? And so I looked at Kevin, I was like, what is he doing that he's losing less than everybody else? His percentages are higher on a treble hook. So I looked at his rod. I listened to everything he ever had to say about his hooks, his line, his rods, the way he fights his fish. So I did that, and I learned that, okay, treble hooks, I'm not losing fish anymore. And then when I go to punching, and it's not even somebody who wins a lot of money. I think this is where you got to be very careful too. It's not about how much you can look at an elite angler and say that guy's known for flipping, but that still doesn't mean his percentages are great. He might just be he understands flipping, he understands where they live, he understands how to get the bites, but he still might not be the best percentage-wise, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if that makes sense or
no, it does.
Whatever,
it
but
does. It's like it does.
So yeah. So and
especially with fish, because you're looking at numbers. You're not looking at just one fish.
Correct.
You're not looking at a knockout. You're looking at how many fish did you catch that day? How many did you lose? How many?
Correct. And then percentages even go to strategy. Like I said, when I went in this tournament, I knew that if I swung for the fence on day one, that that I had maybe a 50% chance that I bombed and my entire season is over on one day.
Yeah.
So that was a percentage. That's a 50% thing, right? But I also knew that I could probably do everything in my power outside of that, and maybe, or I felt like I could. I felt like I had a 90% chance of making the top 10, of getting to not leading it after day two, but getting to 36 pounds by doing a whole lot of other stuff. But it all goes back to percent. And so for me, I mean, maybe that's different for other people, but for me, that's the way I fish. That's the way I analyze. That's the way I process.
No, it makes sense, dude. And fucking great podcast, bro.
Glad
I appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank
you have any sponsors you want to plug?
Yeah, I always want to thank Toxic Baits. Caesar and Toxic Baits have been there from day one. I told you guys earlier that when it came to rods and lines and stuff, that I use everything. I will say I truly believe when it comes to hard bait, wake baits, I've used everything, MS Slammers, I've used AC, I've used it all, and I just don't think there's anything better than Toxic Baits. So Toxic Baits, Bobby D's, he's been making all of my spinner baits, vibrating jigs, and he even makes a lot of my heads, like swim bait heads, hooks and stuff. Thank him because I've won so much money on his stuff. That's what I use. They're really the only two, and then Arbor Wealth Management, which is my company.
Nice.
So anybody out there that bass fisherman, hunter, or you don't have to be any of them, but if you're ever looking for investment management or anything, that's what we do. 28 years and going. My uncle started the firm. There's 4 of us and family operation.
What about Instagram, stuff like that?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram. That's pathetic that I don't know.
I think it's just Phil Dutra.
I think it is. I'll tell you right
simple.
here. It is. Here it is. Profile. Dutra Fishing.
There you go.
Dutra Fishing. Follow me on Instagram. I kind of slowly transitioned it this year to my Instagram to being really dedicated to just fishing. Okay. I used to get into, everybody knows I'm very political, a lot of things. But I have kind of said, you know what, for Instagram, I'm going to designate it mostly just for fishing. And then, you know, I'll do my other stuff on other platforms. Yeah. So.
Appreciate it, bro. I appreciate you coming back on.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Thank you.
I hope the next time you come, we talk about your full-on wins from FLW.
Thank you. And I hope next time we talk, I'm like qualified for the tour back east.
All right. Thanks, Phil.
Thanks, Nick. Take care.